Hi everyone, welcome to part one of your flipped lecture. And in this class, what I'd like to do, or my purpose for the class, is really twofold. One, I think it's important that maybe I just give you a little bit of a lead-in terms of the context of copyright and how it impacts you as a future teacher and what that means and maybe what that looks like a little bit. The second part of this is for you really to think about flipped learning as a pedagogical approach that you could use as a future teacher. Again, you might think, oh, I'll never use this with my early childhood education students or my elementary students, but really, you guys, I think you can be creative in the use. It's not like you're going to sit your students down to a 15-minute lecture maybe on copyright, but what is the content that you need to deliver to them, even as young learners? And then what it does is, if they have access and if they can view that material, then it frees up class time when they're with you face-to-face to do some creative, innovative things, or even better, hands-on activities with the students where you're there to facilitate the activities, okay? So keep an open mind, think about it. We will be doing a few more flipped probably in the class as needed. The other thing that I like about flipped is my travel could change, or I have to go to a meeting somewhere or whatever, and typically what would happen? Well, cancel classes, okay? But in this case, I don't have to do that. I still can provide you with some instructional strategies, some instructional content, so that you can work even on your own, personalized learning, and then we can still pick up where we left off, and I really don't lose any instructional time. So I think that's really important. As you think about flipped learning too, please remember, or please kind of think about the structure of how I've set it up. It's not just a lecture with slides, okay? That's a piece of it, and it could be a piece of how you use it. It may not. But I've also had you involved in taking some polls, giving some feedback, looking at some video. So there's other things mixed into that. And that, again, is the format and how you, as a teacher, kind of orchestrate this activity of a flipped learning, okay, experience. So with that, what we'll do is we'll kind of get into some content, just some background information on copyright that I thought was important for you to know. So here are the questions that if we had this in the regular time and so forth, these would be the three questions that I would have up on that screen. Kind of the context of, and that's what we're going to do in this part, is why should you be concerned about copyright? Why should you even care? Okay, that will be important. Then in part two, what I will get to is more, what do we mean by fair use? And then specifically, what are the 4 criteria of fair use, and why I think those are kind of important for you to know and understand as you move forward and as you integrate that into your own classroom. So first off, even before you got to this video, hopefully what you did was you completed a Google form. Again, another use to show you how you could have your students use Google form, a good way to collect data and things. So what do you think you know about copyright? That was kind of my goal. I gave you 4 scenarios in which I wanted you to react to, and then now, kind of based on your responses, we'll talk about those on Tuesday. But hopefully, even after this piece of the content, you will start putting the puzzle pieces together of maybe, well, how should I have answered that question, and so forth. So think about that. It's just kind of a gathering question on, okay, what do you think about these scenarios? And it gives me an opportunity to find out, what do you already know or think that you know about copyright? I'm going to share this comic just very, very quickly. And for me, it's kind of the first line of this comic. If it's okay to copy from the internet, if it's okay to copy from the internet, what this is playing on is kind of that whole idea of, and we all know it, that because it seems like we can just go out, highlight text, copy it, and paste it somewhere, it's so easy, it must be okay. And for some reason, kids, for some reason, college students, for some reason, adults, lose their common sense of an ethical approach to other people's work, in this case, text, that's posted on the internet, that we think we can just take it. And I kind of showed you the example even of the graphics that was on Google Images. It's like they're there. I must be able to just take them. But when you go into the usage rights, the copyright rights of these images, then it gets a little cloudy. It gets a little dicey. So I think what I'd like to do is I'd like to kind of reel you in terms of your thoughts of what you can and cannot use on the internet. The other thing that I think is very important in this context is, you guys, I like to think of copyright as a glass half full. I like to think of it as, this is what I can actually use, rather than a lot of teachers, a lot of professionals that way will think of it as a glass half empty. Well, I can't use this and I can't use this, so I'm not going to use any of it, okay? And so it's just to kind of couch that a little bit for you, that yes, we can use some of these things, but let's understand how we can use it appropriately so that we're good models for the students that we're working with, okay? So here's an excerpt from an article on the internet that's posted, and you can go ahead and search for the title of this article, and you could read the whole thing. It's not very long or anything, but it's an interesting kind of story about what one author found out about how teachers lack a very good understanding of how copyright works, therefore sets a bad example for those that they're in connection or in contact with. And I have this one excerpt from this article, and you might say, well, it's 10 years old, and like I say, with some of these articles, you guys, they're kind of oldies but goodies. It's not like people write a lot about copyright. They don't write about it because it doesn't change a lot. It will change some, but it doesn't change a lot, okay? But in this thing, what they have said here is that teachers really don't understand the law of copyright, and that it is a law, and that they deal with this confusion in one of three ways. One being, the teacher will say, see no evil, meaning what they do is they don't even educate themselves about copyright, and by doing that, they don't think anything's wrong because they don't know any different. Guys, that's a very, very poor informed choice to make in these days and times. So again, that's why I think it's important in this class that at least we give you some basis to work from and then kind of build that expertise from there. Another one is this close the door mentality. And teachers have this mentality about a lot of things. I'm in this classroom with these four walls. I'm going to close my door. Nobody's going to see anything that's going on, and I can do what I want. Again, I think that's a very dangerous mentality, especially with copyrighted things, because you can't just do what you want. You have to work within the realm of fair use and other things associated with copyright. The other one is less probably dangerous, but it's this hyper comply. They kind of perceive what the law is and think it's right, but yet they're still not knowledgeable about how to make ethical choices when using materials in the classroom. And so again, you guys, for this, I am not trying to be the copyright police for you guys, okay? Please don't think that, because I'm not a total expert on it, but I'm also, I feel like I know enough that I have ideas that I think you can think about as you enter classrooms so that at least we make ethical choices when we're working with students. And with technology, that's very important to be that kind of a role model. Okay? So why is this important for you? You guys, these are pretty easy, and I'm going to go through them very, very quickly. Number one, copyright is federal law. It's law. So what do we usually typically do in our society? We follow the law. So that's number one. Number two, and this is the important one to me, obviously following the law is too, but you guys, I really believe in this, that it's an ethical necessity. I really truly believe that we need to be, as much as we can be, okay, ethical educators, right? We want to do things that are right. We want to do things right for our students. And so I think that's a reason to be making sure that this is important and making sure that it's something that you take to heart, okay? And then for the kind of the easy thing, you guys, it's obviously just the right thing to do. If we're going to use these technologies, you guys, let's do it right, okay? Let's not be that teacher that closes the door and, okay, we'll do this, behind closed doors, because in reality, somebody might find out, and we'll talk about that when we come together probably next week, okay? Early lessons on copyright. I'm not going to talk too much about this because your reading talked about this a little bit, but copyright laws are subject to ongoing interpretation, you guys. So just make sure. We'll talk about that single opinion years ago when the Supreme Court Justice, they were dealing with videotape at the time, but they voted 5-4 kind of in favor of we can push that record button on our recorder at home and record it for our own use. That was a huge decision and a huge decision on how we have moved forward with copyright and how we handle it, okay? So it's a very interesting case. Also that you have to know is this is one of those things that you do have to kind of stay up on. Copyright can change at any time, and it's done so frequently. We have different things that we have to think about, and so keep that in mind that in 2017, this is what it's saying right now, but in 2020, something might happen that changes that opinion, and they change or make some kind of a tweak to copyright. So it's something that you do have to stay in tune with as a future teacher and know that it could change at any time. I'm just going to end with this quote, and I'll let you read it for the most part. And notice that you guys, good intentions can result in clouded judgment. I truly believe that. Be careful about that. But for me, in this quote that I have provided, it's that last piece there. This is why I think copyright law is important to us. And that is, I'm hoping that I can be an ethical role model for you to emulate, because if I emulate it, and then you, as you get into your own classrooms, emulate it, your students are going to follow what you're doing, okay? So, it's just all about that idea of really being ethical educators and good digital citizens in terms of how we use these technologies, and especially how we use them with students, okay? So, that's part one, and now you can move on to part two when you're ready. Thanks.